By the late 1990s, Stanley Meyer was a well-known figure around Columbus, but his story peaks on the first day of spring in 1998 in the parking lot of a Grove City restaurant. Meyer was having a high-stakes lunch at a Cracker Barrel with two Belgian investors. According to his brother, Meyer took a sip of cranberry juice, suddenly clutched his throat, and ran out the door. He collapsed on the tarmac. As he lay dying, he gasped to the bystanders around him, "They poisoned me." Meyer was 57 years old, and for years he had been telling anyone who would listen that he had invented a device capable of powering a car from Los Angeles to New York City on exactly 83 gallons of ordinary tap water. That sudden, violent death took a man many considered a common fraudster and instantly turned him into a martyr. It launched a conspiracy theory that powerful energy syndicates were assassinating inventors to suppress free energy technology. The appetite for Meyer's claims was born out of genuine desperation. During the 1970s oil embargo, gas stations capped sales and Americans waited in lines for hours just to fill their tanks. People wanted a way out of fossil fuel dependency. Meyer had no engineering degree and no formal scientific training, but he possessed a relentless drive to invent. Over his lifetime, he filed thousands of patent applications across multiple industries and even claimed to have contributed to the Gemini space program. His most famous creation was a bright orange dune buggy. Meyer staged public demonstrations, driving the vehicle around and claiming the engine was burning nothing but hydrogen split from water on demand. Local news stations broadcast footage of the buggy. Soon rumors circulated that officials from the Pentagon had visited Meyer's laboratory to inspect the technology for military operations. The narrative was poised perfectly on a knife's edge. Either a self-taught inventor had cracked the global energy crisis, or he had engineered a highly sophisticated illusion. At the center of his operation was a device Meyer called the water fuel cell. This is a 2D schematic of his design, featuring concentric stainless steel tube electrodes. In standard engineering, a fuel cell generates electricity from a chemical reaction. Meyer's device actually consumed electricity to split water, making it an electrolytic cell. But calling it a fuel cell convinced non-experts it was an energy generator. Instead of using massive amounts of current to separate the water molecules, Meyer claimed his system used voltage resonance. He stated that, by firing highly specific electrical pulses through the water, the molecule vibrated at its natural frequency and shook itself apart into hydrogen and oxygen, requiring almost zero energy input. Rather than selling the actual device, Meyer sold territorial dealerships. Investors paid tens of thousands of dollars for the exclusive right to distribute the technology in their state once it was ready for commercial launch that Stanley Meyer perpetually delayed. To keep investors confident, he pointed to his stack of approved U.S. patents. The U.S. Patent Office reviews applications for novelty and proper documentation, not functional proof. But to a non-expert, a federal patent looks exactly like scientific validation. Mainstream chemists rejected Meyer's claims for a simple, inescapable reason: water is not a fuel. It is the chemical product of hydrogen combustion. When hydrogen burns, it releases energy and makes water. Water is the exhaust. This diagram illustrates the first law of thermodynamics, which dictates that energy cannot be created or destroyed. The energy required to break the bonds of a water molecule will always be greater than the energy you get back by burning the resulting hydrogen. The scale is permanently tipped. You cannot output more energy than you input. So how did Meyer fool observers? Independent researchers later found that Meyer's custom circuit delivered a complex, jagged electrical pulse to the water. When you connect a standard base ammeter to this kind of high-frequency waveform, the meter dramatically underreads the actual power being consumed. Without proper tools like an oscilloscope to capture the true instantaneous power, the gas output looked incredibly high compared to the extremely low reading on the meter. Meyer made standard, inefficient electrolysis look magical to anyone lacking the right testing equipment. The facade finally fractured in 1996. Two investors who had paid $25,000 each for dealership rights realized the commercial product was never going to materialize, and they sued Stanley Meyer for their money back. During the trial, the Ohio court appointed 3 independent electrical engineering experts to examine the dune buggy. On the days the testing was scheduled, Meyer offered excuses and explicitly refused to let the experts hook up their own instruments to his machine. The Fayette County Court reached a decisive conclusion. They found Stanley Meyer guilty of gross and egregious fraud, ordering him to fully refund the investors. Meyer could convince crowds and camera crews on his own terms, but when placed under the threat of rigorous, legally mandated scientific measurement, he locked his invention away. 2 years after the verdict, Meyer died in that Grove City parking lot. Despite his final words, the Franklin County coroner conducted a comprehensive toxicology screen and found zero trace of poison. The cause of death was a cerebral aneurysm, exacerbated by Meyer's documented history of severe high blood pressure, but the medical facts were quickly overshadowed. Just days after Meyer's funeral, his laboratory garage was broken into. The thieves stole the orange Dune buggy, along with all his research notes and testing equipment, and were never caught. This theft cemented the belief that an oil industry hit squad had assassinated Meyer to bury his work. Yet his patents were entirely public and freely available. Killing him wouldn't hide a working technology because the blueprints were already distributed worldwide. The assassination theory contains a severe logical flaw. The sudden death and subsequent theft actually provided the ultimate permanent shield for a machine that the courts and physicists had already proved did not work. Today, Meyer's core concept, hydrogen-powered transportation, is actively on the road. Major automakers like Toyota and Honda have poured billions into actual fuel cell vehicles, with highly anticipated next-generation models arriving in 2026. These modern cars don't attempt to bypass the laws of thermodynamics by generating free energy from tap water. They use hydrogen purely as a carrier, a way to store energy generated elsewhere, keeping the vehicle itself entirely zero emission. The primary hurdle keeping these cars from mass adoption isn't a secret syndicate suppressing the patents. It's the massive logistical challenge of building thousands of highly pressurized hydrogen fueling stations to replace the existing gas pump network. Stanley Meyer attracted millions by selling the dream of a magical shortcut, a machine that could extract infinite power from water with zero effort. The shortcut was an illusion, but the pursuit of a cleaner energy grid continues, driven by the slow, difficult, and verifiable work of real engineers.